Okay, so welcome to the 25th episode of the How to Build a Black Nation with Power podcast. This podcast is about understanding and bringing together the many pieces of our empowerment and freedom puzzle under one unified umbrella as much as possible to ensure we don't become a permanent underclass in the country that was built on the backs of our people. We want everybody to understand that a lot of our people are still doing some awesome things on awesome levels, and we want to take into consideration what our people have done and what so many are currently doing, like the sister here, to let people know that our empowerment and freedom march is not starting from square one. We most certainly have a lot of people operating at a very high level, and surprise, a lot of them care enough to come back and give back to show us how to operate on a higher level, and that matters. My name is Tumani Mwandani. I'm the founder of the Black Gold Nation. I am a product of the Shrines of the Black Madonna's efforts over since 1953. To establish a nation within this nation, something that Black people can control for themselves so that we can do what we need to do for ourselves and move ourselves forward. The Black Gold Nation is headquartered in Houston, Texas, which is where I am. The podcast is titled How to Build a Black Nation with Power, because we're trying to get our people to understand that if we're going to have something that we can control, we can own, that's going to move us forward, we have to have three things: a strong foundation. We have that. The Black Gold Nation is built upon the Shrines of the Black Madonna, which came started in 1953. We got to have a spiritual connection with one another and a higher power. That is our superpower, I believe. And we have to have leadership that knows what it's doing in all of the critical areas of community development and nation building. And that is why we're having this election. That's why we're having this interview with this sister this evening, because we absolutely must find Black people who know what they're doing. We don't have time to find people, send them to school, get training. We have to find people who know what they're doing now, proven expertise and experience and what we need them to do now, so that we can move forward and help them make their Black wheel bigger, better, and stronger, because it helps them, it helps their family, and of course it helps us because they are giving back to us. So tonight we're going to focus on the very, very, very critically important area of mental health. I don't care how good something sounds. I don't care how much sense it makes. I don't care how logical it is. If we're not mentally healthy, if we're not in tune with ourselves, if we're not comfortable in our own skin, we're not going anywhere. Culture, spirituality, mental health, all those things go together, and we absolutely must have them. So tonight we're going to interview Sister J.D. Fuller, who's a candidate. I was about to say J. Denise, who's a candidate for the mental health division. So I want to say thank you, sister. I appreciate you taking time to be here. As I've said on the other interviews, a week ago, I think it was maybe a week and a half, you most sort of did not know who I was. I put a post on Facebook, you responded, we went back and forth. Amen, here we are. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being open, for responding to the post, for conversing with me a little bit and agreeing to be here and being open to what we're trying to do, because of course it matters. So before we get into the interview, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, there's a lot of years in my experience, so I won't bore you with all the details. I will just say, I'll fast forward it to my formal training, which was my licensed clinical social work degree, which I earned at Smith College for Social Work in Massachusetts. Before that, I was working in real time in mental health in different capacities. And after I received my degree, I approached the licensing path, which took like 3 hours of three hours. I wish it was 3 hours, 3,000 hours of, of training. Good job. That would have been great.
That would have been awesome.
And then I got licensed in California, and I've been doing mental health frontline work, supervising, a director of a program. Most recently, I just went off on my own, and I'm doing teaching adjunct at Antioch College in California, private practice, working in a school as a therapist, and doing training on anti-racism. So there you have it.
Anti-racism. Ooh, that's a big one. Okay. All right. So I had a chance to peruse the information that you sent me. Awesome bio. These three questions I wasn't going to ask, but the more I read, the more I realized I need to ask these questions. So I'm going to replace some of my questions with these questions because these things matter. Three things from your bio. One says, quote, she prides herself on being a culturally competent clinician, end quote. What do you mean by culturally competent?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think competence is actually like happiness. It's a journey.
Mhm.
and it comes and goes. There's always something to learn. So I don't know that I would still say that I'm competent, but I would say that I am culturally aware and I have competence.
Okay.
So it's an ongoing process. For every year that I do the work, I learn more. I become increasingly competent, but it's not an end of the road by any means.
That's
I
right.
am aware
That's right.
of various cultures, cultural norms, the historical patterns and aspects. I've done a lot of research. I actually did the racial identity development for an African-American female as my master's thesis.
Okay.
And that began my journey of becoming educated on the real history of America.
Okay.
And through that, I just became, really curious about other cultures. And I've just brought it together in a way that I've learned to integrate it and then train. And I integrate it into my teaching, I integrate it into my trainings, and even into my therapy that I do with clients. So it's a process.
Awesome. Amen. Amen. I like that. I tell people that if you're the smartest one in your circle, you need a new circle.
Exactly.
And if you think you're done learning, you're probably about to die, because like you said, it's a journey. You should never stop learning. You need new hobbies.
Exactly.
All right.
Absolutely. It's not an end of the path.
Yeah. Amen. All right. Next quote from your bio. Quote, her lived experience has informed her professional practice, end quote. Her lived experience has informed her professional practice. Explain that statement to me.
For sure. I'm the youngest of 9. Working working class,
Okay.
poor family. Both parents worked. My father worked 3 jobs. My mother worked 9 hours a day,
Wow.
sometimes extra.
Okay.
So, there's a lot of experience in that process. I come from, as most families of color, large families, have histories of trauma.
Mhm.
And we don't ever recognize it. We don't name it. We don't talk about it. And we don't normalize it.
That's right.
And so both my lived experience in terms of generational trauma and in terms of my own work, my own therapeutic work, I have garnered enough experience to feel that it adequately informs my practice and my life. There was one point in my career, Tamani, where I was a not young clinician, but a novice clinician.
Okay.
And I would tell kids, because I work with adolescents on the front line, and I would tell them, you have to do this, you have to do that. And it was, I had a light bulb moment in an instance where I wasn't following what I was teaching.
Okay.
And it blew my mind literally in real time. And I started to become a practitioner of what I was teaching.
Okay.
And I realized I had to really begin to do what I'm saying
That
to
is
do.
right. Yeah.
And so that's where the culmination, I think, of like the lived experience is constantly informing my practice and what I do.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. And the last quote from your bio, and this is a big one, because this one it is in direct alignment, really direct with what I believe and what we're trying to do. Quote, she's an empathic critical thinker who believes in the strength of the therapeutic alliance. I love that. So tell me, what is the therapeutic alliance? Because it sounds absolutely awesome to me.
This is what I want people to understand about therapy. It's a partnership. The relationship between, let me back up a step. It's imperative that you interview a therapist, you understand their competence, you understand whether or not they have cultural awareness, and then you feel like there's a possibility of developing a therapeutic relationship. Once that relationship begins, now you're aligning with each other. Okay. Now it's a collaboration. Okay. So there's a therapeutic alliance that now becomes a team for you. And I am working with the client to help the client meet their goals, not meet my goals for the client, but meet their goals. So that alliance is what's most important and most healing, because it becomes a corrective experience. It's like a relationship you wished you had had with your parents, you wished you had with your siblings, you want to have with your partner. And it's practice. It's a place of practice. And at the same time, it's corrective, because things you couldn't say to people you love, you can say to your therapist. And so you're developing skills and tools to be able to then use it in the real world and then come back and get feedback. So that's a part of the therapeutic alliance. And in terms of empathic, I'm a painful empath. It's both a blessing and a curse. I feel everything around me. I feel the world's pain constantly. It's a constant negotiation in my life.
One of the issues that I have when I interview interesting people, and you're not on that list, so congrats. There's the quote unquote curse of being an empath. Does that, I won't say arrest your development, because I don't think that's gonna happen, but does that ever freeze you in the moment because the pain is so great?
That's a great question. I'm thankful for all of the therapeutic work that I've done on my own. I used to have anxiety that was immobilizing at times, and I didn't realize it
Okay.
because I was on the front line working with kids in foster care, fighting systems of power and oppression.
That's right.
I mean, at one time I was on the hit list of the CPS.
Oh, wow.
They didn't want to see me anywhere near the court.
Yeah.
Because I was constantly calling them out on things that they would do.
That's
I mean,
right.
it was real.
That's
I
right.
was
Yeah.
really pushing the envelope and
Yeah.
getting in trouble, you know. And so it became very overwhelming for me. And that's when I just continued my work, and I realized I had to find a way to manage the anxiety so that it wasn't immobilizing me, because that was hindering me from doing the best work that I could do.
Sure.
And so over the years, my personal work has offered me the ability to not get frozen, but instead know I need to take a time out, and whatever
Okay.
that looks.
Okay.
You know, if it's travel, checking back into therapy, meditation, my spirituality, exercise, all of those things help to create the support for me
Okay.
that keeps me going. And I just have to pace myself. As I get older, I have to pace myself and find different ways to do it.
Right. Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, cool. All right. So what are you most passionate about?
Black people.
Amen. Next question.
I don't know how much you want me to elaborate, but
No,
hey,
I'm good with that. Go ahead. No, elaborate. Go ahead.
I just, you know, white supremacy has done a number on me at this point in my life that I never anticipated. I have no tolerance for anything that doesn't lead with Blackness. And I only want to educate around anti-racism that includes anti-Blackness, that begins with anti-Blackness, because it is a continuum. And until we work on the anti-Blackness, you can't affect change in other areas. I don't care how often people try. Right. It's imperative that we consider this a priority in what should no longer be a struggle, but actually is, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's always going to be a struggle because those in power are going to want to keep power. But we need power for ourselves. So there's always going to be a struggle. It's yin and yang. It's positive and negative. It's life. Groups want to dominate other groups. And if we don't want to be dominated, we got to have some power. So
you know, Paulo Freire, I love Paulo Freire, was one of the great readings that I did in my life. You know, he and I'm going to ruin his phrase, but it's something to the effect that, you know, oppressors throw out crumbs for the oppressed. And the oppressed get distracted fighting over the crumbs, not realizing the power in the collective. And that is why I no longer say minority, and I don't even say people of color without saying the global majority. Yeah. We have to begin to embrace that we are the global majority, and begin to unite as such and realize we are the true power. We are the economic power. That's right. We are the economic power. That's right. We have to stop giving money away to people who don't have our mission in mind.
You know, we don't have time for this, but at some point I'm going to tell you about the CARE Alliance, which is doing just that, getting Black people to realize that the only reason millions flow through our communities by other people's businesses is because we give them our money. That is the only reason. So if we stop, like Marcus Garvey said, be Black, think Black, shop Black, everything will take care of itself. If we stop giving them our money, i.e. our power, then those millions, they wouldn't flow through. They'd flow in. But anyway, I digress. Next question. How do you define culture? How do you define culture?
You know, that's another, these are good questions. Look, culture is all of who you are. And it's so many, you know, when I teach in a class, I start off the class, which is kind of my thing now. And I say, I teach through my Blackness. I'm just going to put that out there. There is not a thing that will not come from my Blackness. That is who I am. And that's how I present. And that's how this class will be informed. Okay. Now, having said that, I have numerous cultures. I'm a part of many cultures because it's pieces of myself that make up the various cultures that I have. What I lead with is the one that I experience as being most oppressed, and that is my Blackness. Amen. And so that's the one that garners the most experience that I offer. But various parts, I mean, it's an exercise culture. It's, you know, being the youngest is a culture. Yeah. There's everything that you are a part of. It can in some way be identified as a culture, and thus informs the wholeness of who you are.
Yeah. Okay, cool. How do you define trauma?
Oof. So, you know, with all of these TikTok wannabe therapists,
yes,
you know,
there's a bunch of them, right? It's a bunch of them. Lord have mercy.
Man,
Yeah.
There are so many misused words in so many circles now, because everybody knows everything about
That's right.
everything.
That's right.
When clients come in throwing all this language at me, I'm like, yeah, that's not actually it. So the reality is that trauma is something you experienced in your life that has become a barrier, inhibited your process and progress in some way emotionally. And I don't want to name it as just abuse, because
Okay.
there's so many different types of trauma, and I think that's the only one we think of. But then there's intergenerational trauma. There's being enslavement as a trauma. I mean, the historical trauma every day is paired with all the other types of trauma that we experience individually. So there's a collective response that we have in terms of our trauma, along with the individual experiences that we've had in our lives that have impaired our progress emotionally and even sometimes professionally.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah. And I like to say, I don't know of any group that's been traumatized more than us. And it's been proven that trauma can be passed down through DNA. But the fact that we're still here, we're still functioning, a lot of us, I believe that makes us a very unique, powerful, and strong people. And that's why I believe that the only thing that can stop us is us. Next question. All right. So how much does our history, as relates to the global system of capitalistic white supremacy racism, how much does this system and our history in it play a role in our trauma?
It guides it. I mean, it is our trauma. The fact that
it is our trauma. Yeah.
The fact that we are not considered immigrants. We have not experienced our lives as immigrants. We're migrants. But we have not experienced the benefit of the immigrant mentality. We have come into a society that we have been so ambivalent about, and still have not found a way to inform our process. So it's been a barrier in those terms. I mean, I work with families who have come from immigration, and the mentality is so different.
Yes, it is.
They came towards something. We were taken from something.
Right.
So we have a lot of attachment, that has been impaired and impacted. And so as a result of that, it begins there, and then it tumbleweeds thereafter, because it's just repeated trauma. People say, I no longer say healing from trauma when it comes to racial trauma. I no longer say heal, because I don't believe that you can heal a wound that is continuously reopened, not even reopened, that's constantly being beaten and picked apart. There is no healing. And there is no resilience, because resilience just means you can knock me down, I'm going to keep bouncing back. So I no longer use that. What I use is thriving. We are a people who thrive. And so where we may be strong, we are also weak. However, we are able to put one foot in front of the other, because that's what we've been taught. Now we have to learn to put one foot in front of the other while taking care of ourselves in the process, because that's the piece that's been missing. We've never been taught how to take care of ourselves. And how to validate the experience, which is a big part of the work that I do.
Yeah, we've never been taught how to take a moment and breathe. And smother the proverbial roses along the way.
Absolutely.
Like Brother Michael said, that Black people aren't stupid. We're just too busy trying to survive to think about anything else.
That's it. And that's why I would love to see the survival become a conscious thriving, like a thriving mentality rather than survival. Because survival, you're grasping for air. You're just trying to hang on. If you're thriving, it's a conscientious process.
Right. Right. And that's why that's why I asked that question about culture, because it has to become it has to become something that we do. It's just who we are and how we function, how we operate. So just like we need the therapy and we need the conversations and we need the spaces to be, it has to be just what we do. The slave culture, as we said in the shrine, the slave culture can't be about this, the destruction of ourselves, because that's something that somebody else gave us, that they placed us in, that now is on automatic pilot. So we have to create a pro-Black safe space to be, so that we can thrive, but we can thrive in style and be healing ourselves, or always be in the healing process, to close some of these wounds, so that we can continue to move forward and build.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Next question. All right. So how do we get the people who've been through so much, to people who don't even want to talk about therapy, because that's what those people do. How do we get our people to begin healing, given the fact that we've been through so much? And not only have we been through so much, and you just said it, JD, I will say JD Denise.
That's great.
Not only have we been through so much, but the wound is still open because we're still going through so much. How do we begin that
Yeah.
healing process when we've been through so much and still going through so much?
Yeah, I think we have to make it smaller.
Okay.
That's the other thing that I don't like about being healed. It sounds so big and it sounds so overwhelming.
Okay.
You know, rather if you're constantly in the healing process, if you're thriving, if you're moving forward, if you're learning how to move forward in a helpful way, that is the work. I
Okay.
often tell people, you're sitting here with me. We just did 50 minutes.
Right.
Work done for the day.
Yes.
We could be talking about sports.
Yeah.
We have to stop thinking about it as I'm going to come in, cut you open, dig in to the deepest
take
scariest
the
part of your
trauma
life,
out.
pull it out,
Healed.
and it's going to be blood everywhere.
That's right.
It's not a massacre.
Yeah.
Baby steps. Baby steps is what we have to embrace.
Okay.
I don't care if you go to a group. I don't care if you have a spiritual group of friends and you bring in a therapist who's trained and has cultural awareness. Whatever it is, engagement is the key.
Engagement is the key. Okay. Would you consider yourself to be a spiritual person?
I would, yes.
Yeah. Is our innate spirituality connected to our mental health?
That's the tricky one, right? Because there are people who do not believe, and I do not try to tell them to believe. Now, if you're asking for me personally, and when I work with people who are spiritually connected, absolutely, it flourishes, it flows.
All right.
When I'm working with someone who considers himself an agnostic or an atheist, I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. I'm going to work with what you have and what you believe. But for myself, I am very, transparent about my own belief system in terms of being a spiritual person and feeling guided by a spiritual power. And I avoid names and labeling because that alienates people. And so I believe that moving in a spiritual energy is really more effective when trying to pull people in.
Sure.
It doesn't alienate because there's been a lot of trauma in churches. And
no doubt.
the religiosity continues.
Yeah.
I mean, I may piss people off, but I still don't understand why churches aren't taxed.
Yeah.
There's
Amen. Yeah.
There's a lot of alienation under the name of God.
Sure.
And that's problematic. And so there are many people in churches, but there are many more who could be impacted by spirituality if they didn't feel so alienated by the religiosity of church.
And when you said people who believe that they are agnostic or what was the other one? Agnostic or atheist. When they say that's a religious mindset. Spirituality it is what it is. It's like saying I don't believe in the wind. Well, you cannot believe in it, but it still exists, right? So when people think that way, they're coming from a religious mindset, whereas religion and spirituality are two separate things completely.
Right, and they would say that it's science. Some people would say it's connected to science, and therefore it's more logical.
Yeah,
and that's fine. Call it whatever you want.
Call it whatever you call it. Yeah, yeah. That science, it might be a process to understanding that science to a certain extent. There are still mysteries in that science that you can't explain, and that is where the spirituality comes in. So blah blah blah. All right.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Amen. Next question. So, as a candidate for the mental health division, what would you like to bring to that department to make it bigger, better, and strong, that division? And what would you like to leave for the next person who's coming behind you?
Well, I am an elder in the community. You and I have discussed.
Say it ain't so. Who you joking?
you and I have discussed that.
Just a tad.
And as an elder, I have not been taught the things that I should have been taught. Okay. I learned the things I had to learn because I wasn't taught them.
Okay.
And so I think it's very important to provide opportunities for the community and the person that's next to have the lessons learned to move forward. Okay. So I see it as a mentorship. I see it as a way of, I'm looking for an opportunity to give all that I have to someone to carry on, because truth be told, I don't have a whole lot of energy for the next to carry this weight. Right. I mean, part of my social media is very much lifting voices. My podcast is about lifting voices of people in social media because they are the people who are going to carry it on.
That's right.
We were doing the thing when there wasn't social media and there were no lights, and we weren't counting likes and names and how many people were following. So that's not my experience. So I think it's very important to build a culture of education in
Right.
terms of mental health, understanding
Right.
what it is and it isn't. See, there's a new sector now of younger generation of therapists, Black therapists in particular, who are, they want to present as down. It's all about not therapy. It's all about not looking like white therapy to be therapy.
Okay.
So there's a whole lot of trying to mix it up and make it more manageable. And I think it does a service and a disservice. And that's what we have to be careful of.
Okay.
Because if you try to make things so exclusive, like too specific to a certain group, then it becomes exclusive.
Okay.
There are people who are left out. And so I think the idea is to create user-friendly language education and understanding of mental health so it's more inclusive. Whether you're an old head or a new one, we all can understand the importance of mental health, and we understand why, not because somebody else says it one way versus another.
Okay.
Now, I tell people all the time, I do not do my work from a Eurocentric lens as much as I can. However, all of my training has been from a Eurocentric lens.
Sure.
So I have to be honest about the base of what I learned is that.
Yeah.
But what I had to apply onto it was the cultural piece in education, and nobody handed that to me. I had to find it.
Okay.
And so I think that's what's important. I think if that makes sense, I think it's about spreading knowledge, sharing the space, and mentoring people into taking over the leadership and moving forward to, in order to impact a greater amount of people. That's what I think.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to what I asked you initially and bring it back and throw it in your face. All right. So from the bio, quote, she prides herself on being a culturally competent clinician. Her lived experience has informed her professional practice. Question, can someone who doesn't understand our pain, our background, our struggles, can that person who might be a licensed therapist, can they properly counsel and or provide us therapy that we need if they don't understand our pain?
This is a big question. This could be an hour in and of itself. There is a trainer, and I'm forgetting his name, who actually says no.
Yeah.
No, Black people should see Black therapists. My only problem with that is that if you are a person who has fully recognized your evolution and your racial identity development, and you work with someone who's not, but they look the same as you, that's as misleading as working with a white therapist.
Sure. Yeah.
So they can be doing harm. And our goal is to do no harm.
That's right.
So if somebody's trying to do therapy with you from a oppressed lens because they haven't done their work and haven't evolved, well, that's as hazardous to me because now the perpetrator looks like you, and they're trying to do this very vulnerable work with you. Yeah. So that's a piece. The other piece is, do I think, and I've gotten into arguments on social media about this, do I think all white clinicians should see people of color, people from the global majority? Absolutely not. I think there are very few. Okay. I would say the ones that I have trained have a likely ability to understand what they don't know. Okay. And their understanding is based in acceptance, and they must do their own work. It is not about having you teach them. It's about creating a space, because there's something that a white clinician can offer if they have that background. Yeah. There is some. We live in a white supremacist world. We are impacted by white supremacy daily. That's right. If you have this small space with a white clinician who has some skills, it can be slightly corrective for you. Okay. You can feel empowered and learn language in a way that affords you an opportunity that so many Black people don't have. Right. Don't have the opportunity to speak their truth to somebody who looks like the oppressor. Okay. So it has that nuanced ability, but it needs to be handled delicately, and I wouldn't hand that torch over to everyone. Yeah. So it's not a yes or no. It's a yes and maybe. Yeah, depending on who you're working with and what they've been through and their understanding of what they've been through, or what other people have been through. So basically, and they know that they don't know. They know that they don't know, and they know they're not right. And they know that they don't know, and they're not trying to minimize what they don't know because it's not their experience. Because that won't. When I train clinicians, particularly white clinicians, I say to them, stop telling Black people that you have a safe space for them, because you don't. That's a lie. You don't. You don't have enough power to create safety for me. Right. In a macro that presents the way it does. I need you to stop saying that to Black people. Number one. Number two, don't show up with your fragility trying to figure out how to say the right thing. The only wrong thing you can do is say nothing and act like you and I look the same.
Right.
So don't come into the space not owning your white supremacy, because it's yours and you
Okay.
can't give it away. So that's the kind of language I have with them that offers them a reality of how they're sitting with someone who looks different than them.
Okay. If you had a magic wand, no, but yeah, I have a magic wand, and I've just used it, poof, to make Sister J. Denise Fuller. She's over all of the therapists in the world. That's her. That's what she does. She's over. Would you at that time make sure that the Black therapists coming through your program absolutely understand what it means to be Black on this planet?
Yeah.
Before they can start giving therapy to anybody, would that be your role and your goal?
Absolutely. And furthermore, sorry, just knocked my light over. Furthermore, I would do that, and I would make sure that there's enough Black therapists trained well enough so they wouldn't have to have a white therapist if they didn't and weren't ready for that corrective experience, because there's a lot of things that need to happen individually before you're even aware that, oh, this could be positive for me working with a white therapist who has this awareness. There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen before that. So ideally, I'd love for every Black person to have a Black therapist who is fully evolved in their racial identity development, so that sit down and holds a space that is effective for our community. Absolutely.
Yeah. And having a Black therapist who is racially affirming, although they get their education from a white institution, that's tough, because a white institution may or may not realize that being Black is different than being anything else.
No, it doesn't realize it. Let's just cut through that.
And that's a
it
problem.
Doesn't realize it. It doesn't educate you.
Doesn't even care.
It doesn't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't care. I went to a school that was adamant that they were an anti-racist institution. And I was also a part of planning a walkout and fighting the system to prove to them they weren't.
Right.
So the reality is that it does not exist. They don't have the books that are effective enough. They don't have enough teachers who look like us. So it's not there.
Right.
So if you don't, just like American history, if you don't learn it on your own,
that you're not gonna learn it. You're not gonna learn it. And that goes back to the point and the importance of what we're doing. We got to have our own stuff across the board. Okay, next question. So it would do Black Gold Nation no good to try and get our adults on the right page in every way that we're trying to do to empower and free us if we don't bring our youth along with us. That would be a counterproductive, counter-revolutionary, and quite stupid revolutionary move or non-move. What are you going to do as you try to help the adults be healthy in a mental space? What are you going to do to bring the youth along with you? So
I believe that it's a matter of exposure. First, people need to have exposure about what mental health is. You know, it's a great time and it's a tough time for mental health, right? Because we're all about removing the stigma. Well, I've been removing the stigma for the last 20 plus years. But now it's a thing. And so it's a thing in the Black community. It's a thing in the global majority to remove the stigma of mental health. But we need to talk about what that looks like, what that really means, not just have a term that we throw out, not just have hip young therapists who break it down in, an Afrocentric way to make it user friendly. We have to make mental health something that makes sense to people. How you eat is a part of your mental health if your body is telling you something different. To not be able to respond to your body's language is problematic. That's a barrier. That's a block from yourself. Okay. Well, everything is connected. How you sleep is a part of your mental health, whether you exercise or not, part of your mental health, how you engage with your family, how you love yourself, all a part of mental health. So it needs to be deconstructed in a way that makes sense to people. And it's like, oh, right now, the way I'm moving my arm, that's a part of my mental health. It is literally connected to everything you do for yourself that informs the wholeness of who you are. So that's where I think that this service is happening, is that we're not making it make sense. We need to make it make sense.
And we do that with the youth by helping them understand what it is and how it affects you. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. Want to make sure I was understanding your answer. Okay. Next question.
Let me just say one more sentence about that. If the adults, like I tell parents all the time, your kids are watching everything you do, and they're watching from a very young age.
That's right.
When you move the world in a way that empowers them, not just academically or not just superficially, but you're talking about how their body is teaching them things and how they're listening to their body, that's mentoring for a mental health future. And so that's what kids start to learn and understand. And then that's the way that they teach each other. So does that make sense? Is that a little bit clear?
Yeah, it does. And ideally, if I had that magic wand, I would take all of us out of this abusive system that we're in, the system of capitalism, white supremacy, racism. Take us out of the system, put us somewhere else, and just start everything fresh and everything new. But of course, that's not possible. So how do we rebuild the Black man, woman, and child so that we are healthy and strong physically, mentally, spiritually, morally? How do we do that when we still exist in such an oppressive environment and anti-Black space?
Mm-hmm. You said it before when you said we have to create Black spaces.
Word.
We need to have opportunities to create Black spaces to do this work.
That's right.
You know, and with Zoom's such a thing now, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to find opportunities to sit and create, because engagement is key.
Yeah.
And people learn in relationship. We don't learn outside of relationship. We learn in relationship. And so that's one of the things white supremacy has sought to do so effectively, is break up the relationship that the collective community has so naturally. Yeah. And it's been effective because they've taken the tools they have to turn one against the other and to make us all think that it's about money, but their money, not ours. Yeah. And so it's the improper lesson. So a lot of it is unlearning. And I think that, you know, it's not all going to be done individually, one-on-one. We have to find a way to create spaces that start to blossom because it's information that people can use. Yeah. And so then it grows, you know?
To borrow a phrase, we're going to take the therapeutic alliance to another level and add more people. We're going to create a group and we're going to put people in there.
Well, Tamani, I also teach group therapy, and that's part of.
And you know what? And I also know that you do psychotherapy, which we got to have that too. So yeah. That's right. All of that is going to come into play, I promise. All right. So next question. Our leadership selection process ends this month. Ideally, if you were to win the election, we have people vote in September. We have our inauguration where everybody is coming to Houston for the first time to meet each other, meet the leadership, blah, blah, blah. If you were to win the mental health portion of the election, you're going to have 5 to 7 people who are also running that are going to automatically be a part of your cabinet. All of them have knowledge, expertise, experience. They speak your language, but they're going to be looking to you to put something together and lead us so we can help Black people be better moving forward. What is going to be your first set of marching orders, your first 1, 2, 3 steps that you're going to have your new cabinet do as we prepare to get our people on a mentally healthy path? What's going to be your first set of marching orders for your cabinet?
You know, one of the most important things I've learned in the training of being a therapist is assessment. Okay. And that's key. You know, it's assessment and it's relationship. If the team doesn't function as a team, it's already a dysfunction.
Come on.
That's right. The team has to establish the relationship that is building trust and assessing each other, the dynamics, as well as what's in front. Okay. So you have to be able to create a microcosm of what you want to do on a macro level. So, you know, the team itself has to be able to establish its oneness in a way that you understand the vision, because it's created by many people. I mean, I've led many organizations, and the most important thing that I have found in my leadership experience is how to create something that is less than leading and more like guiding and partnership. Okay. So that people don't feel oppressed, because you don't want to recreate the system that's already done so much damage.
That's right. That's right.
That would be horrific.
That would be traumatic.
So, it would be traumatic. So I very much believe in grassroots. I believe the team is the leader. Good. And one has a bit more or information that specifically facilitates the opportunity to guide, but not necessarily lead in terms of telling others what to do, but to just guide the process. Okay.
I'm glad you used that word grassroots, because something else that we're going to have moving forward, ideally, we're working on this right now, January 2023 moving forward. You're going to have 15 to 20 teams of Black people in different cities who have been a part of our inauguration. They want to take this Black Gold Nation thing back to where they live and start doing stuff. Every team in every city is going to have at least one person who says, I want to represent J.D. Fuller's understanding of mental health in my city, in my space, but I don't know what I'm doing. So what is going to be your first 1, 2, 3 step marching orders for the local teams on the grassroots level so that they can start getting our people on that mental health path? Because it is about what you just said, the grassroots. Everything is about the grassroots, because if we can get the grassroots moving the right way, then everything else moves up.
You know, as I start to move in this time in my life, let's say, where you know, this is my last year working full time at a place.
Right.
I mean, I've always been doing full time work with numerous projects that I'm working on, but this is my first time. This is my first time realizing that I can't do what I'm doing anymore, and so I wanted to find something that allows me to do just that.
Yep.
And by that I mean spread the word.
That's right.
And teach others.
Yep.
And another piece of my leadership experience is that what I don't know how to do, I find somebody who can. And the white man taught me that.
That's right.
And so I've taken that lesson.
That's right.
I've taken that lesson, and that's what I believe. If it's a lay person who wants to do it, then we need to find a volunteer who maybe is like me in their career, and just doesn't know where to go and what to do to participate, but has the knowledge, has the experience, and invite them in, because it's all about inviting people in who have the skills but may not know where to go to offer them.
Sure. Yeah. Amen. All right. These last few questions should be pretty easy. Well, the next one is not so easy, but this one's easy. Why should someone vote for you?
Oh, why? You know, it's funny because I'm super competitive and yet I'm not. I think it has to, again, to do with something that's in my life. I believe that things will happen the way they're meant to happen.
Okay.
You know, I have the skills, whether I'm, you know, voted the one who guides or not, I'll participate as much as I would if I was guiding the process.
Okay.
So yes, of course, it'd truly be an honor at this point in my life to have a project like this that so speaks to where I am in my life and in my career, in terms of wanting to empower our community to get healthier, stronger, bigger, badder, better. I mean, that just makes my heart beat. So it's definitely something I'm passionate about and have the skill set to do. So am I qualified? Absolutely. And, you know, am I honored to even be in this process? Absolutely. And if I'm voted in as the person who guides, then again, I take it the way I've done everything else, you know, as far as I can with the skill set I have, bringing the team with me.
Cool. All right. This next question is it makes everyone think twice, like, oh my God, what? Next one is, why should someone not vote for you?
Because I have a big mouth. And
that was quick. Okay.
No, okay. You know, some people call it a big mouth, mostly white people.
Yeah.
I absolutely feel that I am authentic. I am who I am, and sometimes that's hard for people to take. I'm not apologetic about who I am and where I am at this point in my life. So I'm you know, I'm curious and interested, but I also have some skills, and I'm open to sharing, and not everybody is comfortable with that.
Okay. Last question. If you could only take one takeaway from everything we've discussed here tonight, if you could only take one thing away from this conversation, this interview, this back and forth, and the people that are watching live, the people that watch the recording, they will have that one takeaway with them for the rest of their lives. But you only get one from everything we've discussed tonight. What would that one takeaway be that you would want people to have with them for the rest of their lives? What would that one takeaway be? And you only get one.
How you spend your money is a part of your mental health.
Okay.
Keep it in the community and spend it wisely.
Yeah. Amen. That was good and easy. Okay. So in closing, I want to remind everyone what we're doing and why we're doing it. As I said in the beginning, we are on the path to become a permanent class in a country that was built on the backs of our people. No one is coming to say, nobody. I believe the Black community exists for other people to prey upon and get rich, because that is what they do. We were brought here to work and be property. And a lot of people want us to go back to that status of existence, but of course, we don't want that. So we believe that everything we want, everything we need, we can have. We just have to go get it. And to go get it, you have to have people that know how to go get it. So we're having this national leadership election to find people like this sister here who know what they're doing in the critically important areas of personal development, community development, and nation building. This show is called How to Build a Black Nation with Power. We got to have a strong foundation. Check. We got to have a spiritual connection with a higher power in ourselves. We have people who are going to show us how to do that. Check. And we absolutely must have leadership. that knows what it's doing in all the areas by which we are behind, which is everything. We can't be strong mentally and have no food. We can't have food and have no way to protect it. We can't have no way to have ways to protect our food, but don't have businesses. It's all connected. It's all community development. It's all nation building. We can't afford to do one thing at a time because we don't have that luxury. And we can't afford to find someone who don't have the skills that we need now because we don't have that kind of time. America is changing. The America that comes out of this pandemic will not be the same America that went into it. And she wasn't pro-Black when she went into it. Things are getting harder, more difficult, and life as a Black person is simply going to become very, very, very challenging if we don't take the few years that we have to build something that's going to protect us, something that's going to feed us, employ us, train us, protect us, and allow us to move forward. If we don't do that, then we're going to be like some people in other caste systems around the world, like in India. The caste system that you're born into, you're probably going to die into because there's no way to get out of it. We don't want that. We want to make sure that everything we want, everything we need, everything we deserve, we have, because we've made sure that we put systems in place to have that. We don't have systems that we've designed to move us forward. And we're not going to have those systems if we don't have people who understand how to build those systems. That is why we're having this election. That's why we're interviewing this sister. And that's why we are doing what we're doing. We absolutely must understand that no one is coming to save us, but that is okay because we don't need anybody to save us. We can save ourselves with the right people on board, with the right vision and with the right mission. And of course, we believe that is Black Gold Nation. So before I close out, sister, anything you want to say in closing before we knock this thing out?
Well, I feel like you and I connected authentically from the beginning. Excuse me. And I just want to say, absolutely, absolutely. And so I absolutely appreciate your time, consideration, and this process has me very excited. Just knowing that there is something that's happening that feels like it's progressive and timely is very exciting. Cool. So thank you so much.
Amen. You're welcome. And thank you. Like I said, I put the post out, you responded, and here we are. And this is how it's going to work. We have to take time because a lot of our people, unfortunately, we want centuries old problems to be over in a few weeks. And if it takes a few weeks, you take it too long, I quit. It don't work that way. So thank you for being open and being willing. And I like to end all of my interviews with two things. One, always remember that no one can do everything, but if everyone does something, everything will get done. And absolutely, always remember that nothing is more sacred than the empowerment and freedom of Black people, because the Black people don't make it, because we're Black, we're not gonna make it, because we're connected to the Black group. So we gotta put the Black group first, and we gotta build the nation first. So with that, God bless you, thank you very much. You got 5 minutes to make it to your appointment. We did it, God bless you. I will talk to you soon, thank you.
Okay, take care, bye-bye.